Uh, Should we call line? 18. 18? Lindsay, you mind if we start?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We were in closed session for a little while, and we are now back in regular session at just starting. It's a couple minutes after 7. We will begin by standing to the pledge of allegiance and remain about to remain standing for moment of silence, just to set our intentions for the work ahead this year. Never. The pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Let's give every love for this stands for one nation. And that's all. All right, thank you. You can see it. Again, welcome everyone. Welcome to everybody online. Good to see that good to know that there are 18 people joining us online tonight. But you guys get extra credit for showing up in person at the slippery sidewalks. So we're always glad that everybody can join us. So tonight we're going to be discussing the fourth round of affordable housing. Coming our way, we'll do a couple of things. I'm going to introduce the members of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. Let's talk for just a minute or two about a couple of housekeeping notes, and I'll do the introductions. Michael Sullivan, who is our planner from Clark and Hints, will offer a slideshow just running us through some of the most important things that we need to know as we head into the fourth round. Particularly, I think, important for those members of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. And then, following that, we will have some public participation, time for questions, anything along those lines. So I'm just going to dive right in here. So with us tonight, as I mentioned, we have Michael Sullivan. We also have Kelly Grant, who is our affordable housing attorney. Welcome, Kelly. Good to see you. Kelly will be at most, if not all, of the committee meetings this coming year. The committee will be meeting twice a month. Looks like we'll be meeting on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 7 o'clock. I think we'll probably meet here. I still need to confirm that, so I will touch base with all the committee members sometime this week just to get the scheduling up and running on that. So just to get introductions underway, I'll just say your name and then give a little bit of a brief bio. So if you don't mind just standing or waving, Paul Poole, who's going to be representing us from the planning board. Paul has been a resident of the city for 41 years. He's been on the planning board for over 30 years. And he serves as the chairman of the board. He's a retired CPA and has served as the CFO of a company that manufactured modular homes and did real estate development using modular homes for several years. Brian Kelly, who is not here at the moment, he's under the weather, will be joining us as a representative from the zoning board. And Brian is currently the principal of P2B Strategies, a policy, government affairs, and business consulting practice. He's 25 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry, comprising senior level of public policy, public affairs, and market access leadership roles in several multinational pharma companies. His experience includes not-for-profit and public service roles at every level of government, including elected local office. He served as the counsel to the New Jersey governor on a congressional committee professional staff and as in-house counsel and chief lobbyist for the New Jersey State Bar Association. He's a former 4-term Chesterfield Township, New Jersey mayor and township committee member, and chaired the township's joint planning and zoning board for several years. He now serves on the board of adjustment here in Lambertville. He lives on South Main Street with his wife, Debbie. David Minow, over here. Hello, David. He's the past president of Minow and Moscow Architects and Planners. As a founding partner, Mr. Minow specializes in the private sector, large mixed-use residential development, including CODs, and projects that have significant residential component. David is a Master of Architecture degree from the University of Pennsylvania and a Master of Business Administration from the Wharton School. He's active in many professional groups, including the Urban Land Institute and the Congress for New Urbanism. He volunteers his professional services to Habitat for Humanity and Fisherman's Mark. David will be representing the Fisherman's Mark Board here. Julia Taylor here in the back. Julia is a city planner by training. She's worked on housing and redevelopment in Trenton for 16 years. She's currently developing a museum focused on graffiti and street art in downtown Trenton. She served on the Environmental Commission here and on City Council, where she was the council president. So also a member of the Resilience Committee. I'm very happy to have you back in the room, Julia. Sam Goodwin. Sean Goodwin, excuse me, Sean. He grew up here in Lambertville and he graduated himself. He's also a graduate from the College of New Jersey. He just recently finished Peace Corps service in Cambodia, where he focused on helping design and manage community projects with a focus on sustainability. Paul Stevens, 39 Corey Street. It's been built at over $1 billion since 2011. He's a public research scientist for over 30 years. And he has extensive experience working in teams to develop practical, creative solutions for difficult challenges. In retirement, he's well known to the city for his engagement in the community through his active participation in council meetings as a member of the Lambertville CERT and as a soundman for a number of bands. We have Michelle Harris, right in front of Sean. She is a 12-year resident of Lambertville with a home, consulting business, long-term apartment rentals, and 2 crazy canines, Violet and Bodie, all in the Central Business District. Michelle's firm, Alchemy Park LLC, provides humanitarian services focused on reviving infrastructure following catastrophic events, including natural disasters and civic conflict. Michelle supports Habitat for Humanity's motto, everyone deserves a decent place to live, through her work as an international build volunteer. She looks forward to continuing this focus closer to home as we work to address the city's affordable housing needs. Just a couple of other people. City Iggy will be serving as a municipal housing liaison, assisted by Sue Bacorn, who's online tonight. They will be handling all of the reporting and administrative efforts this year, the city, and the other 2 people on the committee will be myself and Councilman Lai. So welcome everybody. And I think I covered everybody there. So with that, I'm gonna ask Michael just to kind of dive in. Dive in, Michael. All right. Yeah. We need to turn down the lights if we're gonna look around the slideshow. Well, we don't have the products and things. Oh, are we not doing the presentation? No, it's not that. The technical issues. Oh. Let's just stand up quietly for a minute.
Get that down the slides.
It's hard for
Sorry. Get that down the slides, you know, if you don't.
Well, the Golden Globe.
Did somebody sabotage you? Or something shit.
Cindy, you pull a plug.
Never, I just feels free to talk really fast.
Oh, gosh.
Can I help?
I just hope while Michael's getting ready while we're sort of dealing with our technical issues, a couple of things I'll note. Our first deadline is January 31st, where the city will have to adopt a resolution accepting the number that was given to us, assigned to us by the thank you very much, the DCA. And so we'll be forthcoming with some. We're talking to Michael Kelly. They're going to be working on that resolution. And we'll be looking hopefully to adopt or to consider it for adoption on January 16th. It's not quite ready. We'll have a special meeting later on in the month. So we'll involve the committee, just involve the council and put on this to show. The other thing I'll just note, because I don't think it's anywhere in Michael's presentation, as of this week, the trust fund for affordable housing here in Lambertville has $308,000 in it, which is a nice figure. When I started, it was under, I think it was around 86,000. These are all development fees. Is that what they're called?
Yes,
Yeah.
no,
Development fees that have built up over the last couple of years with construction of new homes here in town. So that's a good number. And one of the things that the council will have to make a policy decision on at some point in the not too distant future is, will we prefer to use some of that money for administrative costs associated with, getting the fourth round, underway, or whether we're going to just fund that through the regular budget. So, we'll be talking about that sometime soon.
I think there's a cap. Isn't there?
There's a 20% cap. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think that, Lane said we could probably use around $20,000 this year. And, yeah, so don't quote me on that. I'll tell you 2 more minutes.
It's up with us, right?
Yeah.
We'll be having out crayons. Construction baker for presentation.
You're a guy.
Right.
Is that right?
Thank you. Nice working.
Well, we're gonna, so, get a call from this,
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's right. He's,
Uh-huh. Yes, we can come on the Senate Brown for a whole thing.
Yeah. All right, we get you, move it, are you doing a full screen there? Et cetera.
That's the first.
Play PowerPoint.
Okay, unfortunately, we don't have the PowerPoint for the public, do we? Have to share it
We don't, yeah, for those, is it?
online.
All right.
I might be able to figure that out.
Okay. This meeting is being recorded and I will be available, and we'll post this deck to the city website tomorrow. Later too. Oh, you.
So you can switch the slides from where you are?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we want
Seems like fair in this.
Okay.
Learning. For the record, I'm Michael Sullivan. I'm a principal of Parkgate Hanson Training and I'm the municipal planning consultant. And I'm here to talk about the fourth round of New Jersey's affordable housing beta. How Lambertville is going to attempt to address this. Next slide.
Might want to use the mic a little bit if it's being recorded.
Yeah. It's on. So you got that?
You guys would be ideal.
I gotta do this. Is that helpful? Okay, thank you. Looking at there.
To go with things.
Let's see what we do.
Did you bring any puppets? This is a lot of words. I can say this. We don't need to flip through it. This is not.
Okay.
I mean.
There you go. Look around.
No.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have architect on March of this year, March of 2024, March 20th, Governor Murphy signed the law amendment to the Fair Housing Act. Public Law 2024, Chapter 2. This abolished COA, the Council of Affordable Housing, which was a moribund agency within the state. It established also the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program and significantly changed how affordable housing matters are administered in Jersey. But what's interesting is that while this law was intended to pull the jurisdiction over and oversight of affordable housing matters in New Jersey away from the courts, which had happened during the third round, it actually established a judicial system and a program, the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program, which is administered by the judiciary. And so while we thought we were out of the court system, we're right back in the court system. There was an administrative directive, number 14-24, which sets forth the procedures, guidelines, and the housing plan element and fair share plan requirements in a very specific way. It came out of December 18th, they issued that. Because we are in this court-based system, we're gonna be required to file a declaratory judgment complaint or action in order to obtain, protection, from exclusionary zoning litigation and to get compliance through this program. Any disputes or challenges to Lambertville's plan, or actions will be mediated by the program. And Mount Laurel judges, some of the same judges that worked in the third round will be adjudicating these issues. Next. So what does this mean for Lambertville? In short, a new fourth round housing plan element is due by June 30th, no later than June 30th. And the plan will provide for the fulfillment of the obligation, for the period between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2035. But I want to talk about several of the interim deadlines that require action and attention prior to June 30th and beyond. Next. Key milestones, January 31st. By January 31st, the City Council must adopt a binding resolution stipulating to the affordable housing obligation for the fourth round for Lambertville. And by February 3rd, no later than February 3rd, and no less than 48 hours after the adoption of the resolution, they must file a declaratory judgment action with the dispute resolution program. Okay, so those are key things. Next. February 28th, 2025. By February 28th of this year, anybody who wants to challenge the numbers that Lambertville agrees to in terms of the obligation must file with the program. And if no challenges filed, then those numbers that Lambertville stipulates to will be presumed to be valid. By March of 31st, there is a challenge to the numbers. The program must decide whether or not that was a valid challenge and adjudicate that challenge by March 31st. Next. I talked about it already, but by June 30th, Lambertville must adopt a plan, housing plan element, fair sharing plan, and file the adopted ordinances with the program. If for some reason that deadline is problematic for whatever reason, you may apply for a grace period prior to June 30th. And if somebody wants to challenge your housing plan, they have to do so by August 31st of 2025. However, if you do get a grace period granted to you, then the ability to challenge would be extended by virtue of the grace period, commensurate with the grace period. Next. So if there are no challenges filed to Lambertville's housing plan on the fair share plan, the program will review that in compliance with the new law and with the administrative directive and the requirements thereof. And if the plan is compliant, we think, now some of these things are uncertain. We think that a compliance certification or order or judgment from the program will be forthcoming to say that yes, this housing plan element is good, you can proceed and you're immune from challenges. Why I say that it's not clear, and that's because of this administrative directive that came out. It mixes between the new law and this administrative directive certain things. There are gaps and there are conflicts in there. And us as planners, attorneys, we're working together to try to figure out what this means, and we're trying to talk to the program directors. So some of this may change over time, but the key thing are these deadlines that we have to meet. Next. So what if there is a challenge to Lambertville's housing plan element? Well, the program will first take that challenge and review it and see whether it's compliant with what a challenge needs to be. You can't just challenge a plan and say, well, I don't like this plan, I can do it better. It has to find some flaw, whether or not a mechanism is not reasonable, or whether a site is not reasonable, or something like that. It has to be a legitimate challenge. Then they have a process that they've established where you have to go to a settlement conference, and if you don't resolve it then you go to a session, and then there's this kind of loop of trying to mediate. So the program is going to try to mediate any challenges, and this will be consistent of judges, there'll be administrative people, And then there'll also be, what they now call court adjudicators, which used to be called special court masters in the previous round. So those are professional planners who, have a high level of, experience with affordable housing, and they, mediate these things and try to make sure that they fall in line with the rules. Ultimately, the program will decide whether or not the mediation is good, and then come to a settlement, and then issue a final decision, certification, or order, we don't know, on the plan. But we don't think there'll be any challenges to Lambertville's plan, because it'll be a good plan. So, next. One more issue and milestone in the law. A town is allowed to adopt their draft ordinances to implement their housing plan by March of 2026. However, in the administrative directive that was issued in December of 2024, it says that all of your adopted ordinances must be included. So there's a conflict here. This is one of the things we're trying to work at, but we want to bring it to everybody's attention, so we understand. So what's the thing? There's no time to waste, right? We talked about it tonight. We've got to get this resolution stipulating to the numbers, the obligation, and also filing the declaratory judgment action. That has to happen. The implications of not doing so are the loss of immunity from exclusionary zone litigation. Next. So we work for several towns, many towns. And some towns want to challenge the numbers. They want to challenge the DCA numbers. The State Department of Community Affairs issued advisory obligations back in October. And these advisory numbers were based on their methodology, or the methodology in the law, the March 20th law, and how they apply it. And in some cases, they may have used data, particularly for available land, that is not really refined. They were working way up here. They were using land use, land cover data, which is based on satellite imagery. It's not based on parcel level data. And so we have some towns, and they're looking at that and they're saying, well, we think we have less available land than the DCA said. We're looking at that. But anyway, the DCA came down and they looked at these, they used the law and the factors in the law to determine numbers for the entire state. Okay, and what the state DCA said for Lambertville was that the present need obligation, rehabilitation share of this obligation was 0. Okay, so there's nothing to look at there in terms of challenging it. But then they said the prospective need, and we call that new construction or new units, is 39. That's what they came down with. So if Lambertville is going to stipulate to these numbers, we need to understand a little bit more about it, right? So how is it calculated? The present need is calculated based on deficient units and how many are occupied by affordable low income households, like plumbing, kitchen facilities, or overcrowding, but you have 0. So there's no need to look into that. And it's based on census data. Next. But how is the prospective need calculated? This is the new construction operation. This is 39 units. The need is first calculated for the entire region, and Lambertville's in region 3, which is 100 in Somerset and Middlesex County. The need is calculated for the region, and then there's a fair share that's calculated for each town within the region, and that's based on 3 factors. It's based on developable land, household income relative, and job growth. So the regional perspective need next. I feel like I'm doing regional perspective need is 11,604 affordable units. So that's disaggregated among all of the region 3 towns. So if we take that 11,604, there's a factor that DCA used in order to calculate this, and it's Lambertville's average allocation factor, and that's 0.34%. That's based on 3 factors. Equalized non-residential valuation factor, which measured the value of non-residential land over time, 0.37. there's an income capacity factor which measures both the relative level of income between Lambertville and the rest of the region and the lowest income. And then there's a land capacity factor. The land capacity factor in Lambertville is 0. And the reason it's, and so this is how you get to the 39 units. You have a 0.34 times the 11,604, and you get the 39. So of those first two factors, the non-residential valuation factor and the income capacity factor, there is no information or data that we can refine to change that number. So it's based on census data and it's based on New Jersey state data. And that is, it is what it is. The only variable, I talked about this before, that we could change is the land capacity factor. However, in Lambertville, the land capacity factor is 0. And that is because, next slide, you have to look at vacant developable land, and then the state and the DCA took out certain environmental factors, wetlands, they took out C1 stream buffers, and steep slopes, among others. And then it's weighted based on state plan areas. Well, Lambertville is an environmentally sensitive planning area, and it has a weighting of 0. So whenever vacant and developable land is in Lambertville, it gets a 0 weighting. So it's a non-factor. So the only factor that we actually could drill down and look at more detailed information, it's already at 0. So there's nothing to do in terms of looking into it and changing the factor. So that's where we end up. We end up with 39 units as a prospective need and 0 unit obligation for the present. So begs the question, is there a rationale or a legal method that we could reduce Lambertville's number? And there is no way to do it because we do not have a land capacity factor that is above 0. So it just can't be. I'm open to questions.
Michael, could you just kind of elaborate? Thank you. Could you elaborate on the land capacity factor? It has taken into account the sensitivity of Lambertville, environmental and basically environmental sensitivities, correct?
Well,
So is that a good thing or is it a bad thing?
well, I'm neutral on it, right? So what it's doing is, so the environmentally sensitive planning area. Let me back up. The DCA or the law in building this law tried to tie the ability or the need to develop affordable housing to the paradigm of the state plan, which is based on center-based development. And so where you have planning area 1 or 2 or 3, you get full credit for vacant development land. In environmentally sensitive planning areas, you get 0 weighting for that.
Let me ask my question differently. Did the land capacity of 0, does it, if it were greater than 0, would our obligation be greater than 39?
It may be depending on how much it was above.
Well,
0.
if it's, I don't know, if it's 1.
It could be Friday, it could be 1.
It's like, so you're saying that I'm trying to, get this for myself, but I'm not a planner. And I'm thinking maybe people who are in the room or listening don't understand or, need a little bit of a probing on this. So the land capacity is saying you're already at the lowest possible factor for development. So because of the environmental sensitivities in the community, so it's kind of like we've used up all our credits because we have wetlands, we have, steep slope, and some of the other things you mentioned. I'm trying to understand and get clarity for the public whether or not the zero is advantageous or not.
It's one factor in a three-factor equation that the law
But it's the
builds.
thing we can't change, okay? It's the thing we can't change. And I think the public, if I were sitting here, I would be wondering, well, why not? And what's that number mean? And, how do we, how did that number come to be what it is? And what does it hurt us or help? I mean, the question is, does it hurt us or help us in this process? And I mean by hurting, I don't mean hurting, but does it increase or does it raise or lower our obligation by having a factor of 0? If our factor was, I don't know, 10,
You would have a higher obligation.
you would have a higher
A
obligation.
higher perspective.
Okay, so can we make the assumption or the statement that because it's 0, the DCA is saying you're at the lowest possible obligation for that particular factor, right?
That is the lowest
Okay,
you can have in terms of the land capacity. factor.
okay,
Yes,
okay,
that's
thank you
true.
for indulging. Thanks.
Ruth, we'll just be a little informal. Paul, go ahead.
So this was for round 4 that this capacity factor is in there. Was there some sort of similar thing for round 3? Because, some of the areas you pointed out in there, we've been trying to develop on to meet our round 3 obligations. So I'm trying to understand, was there a change to including this factor, or has our factor gone down for some reason I know about for round 3? Looks to me like
It's a new formula.
it's a new formula. Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
So this is a big question, because Lambertville is environmentally sensitive rural area. It's not a center, it's not a place that's supposed to promote growth. We're environmentally sensitive, we're wild and scenic. Most of our vacant land is floodplain, like, Lambert Island, the slopes or has contaminated land. So now we have a number, but based on their own numbers, we have no vacant land for that number. So that means we have to do basically redevelopment to meet our goal.
Essentially, but because your land capacity factor is 0, it doesn't mean you have no vacant development plan.
Right.
It just means that because of the overlay of planning area 4B, that even if you do, it doesn't count towards your capital.
No, I get that, but also, when you do a real analysis of what lands we have available, for instance, on a hill, with problems up there with traffic, flooding, contamination, all of a sudden, like, okay, that site is maybe not there. Lambert Island, which is private, there's no access in a flood. There's only a few pieces, part of Boston Farm, bird property, there's very few places. The only other option would be CVS, Rago, Village Apartments, or, anything else coming into town. So it almost seems like what we need to do is, if we try to meet this number, and I think the number's high, I mean, some of the numbers are some of the towns are wacky. Ringwood in the middle of the Highlands Preservation Area is 133 for some reason. And that may get adjusted, when the state goes back and looks at reformers. So that means we really have to come up with a plan that looks at the areas that are least constrained, that basically most of this town's gonna be redeveloped.
Well, I think that there's no question that this, the law envisions redevelopment. And, the fact that there are other factors other than vacant land and developable land speaks to the fact that there's a thought behind this, that redevelopment will happen. That will happen.
Beth? Please speak loudly so
Okay.
people online can hear you.
Okay. Is this 39 units in addition to the 28 that we had in round 3?
Oh, that's a good question. So, essentially, yes. Short answer, yes. You don't lose the obligation from the previous rounds. And in fact, this new administrative directive that came out had an addendum to it that has all these requirements for housing plan element, fair share plan. And they make it very clear that they want towns to go back and justify every credit they've ever had, right? And it's sort of a, onerous requirement, but it's more than that. So yes, the third round obligation continues, and any unfulfilled third round would continue into the fourth round.
Thank you.
So that means instead of 39, it's like 67
So,
that have to be done over that same 10-year period.
well, no, the third round's supposed to be done by
Well,
June.
I know.
But
So what happens with that? That the third.
it keeps going. And the fourth round plan will have to acknowledge whatever units that were in the third round that have not been fulfilled yet, how they are gonna be addressed, and if there's a necessary change. That's one of the things that, as we go through the plan process, that could happen. I mean, somebody could challenge this and say, well, you've never finished this, how are you gonna do that? We don't think that's viable anymore, you know? And then over time, and as we go through monitoring, right? We're gonna have to demonstrate the mechanisms that we use in the third round, that haven't developed yet are still viable. We're gonna have to demonstrate that over time.
Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, two questions. One quick administrative question regarding the interim deadlines. I understand that how the June 30th deadline is set, but those interim deadlines, are those set also by the state? Where did the interim deadlines come from?
And so which deadlines you're referring to exactly?
Like the January 31st?
Okay, that's in the law.
Oh, it is.
It's in the
Okay,
law. So all our dates are in the law.
Okay.
So yes,
Okay.
all in the law.
Okay, and then second, kind of building on what Jeff was talking about, so we have 39 in this fourth round. But we will learn more about our areas of redevelopment, right? Our available areas for redevelopment as we proceed and as we investigate, we're gonna be learning things. And some of those may have to be taken off the table for things we don't know yet, right? And I think we have a kind of an example of that brewing in Conant Hill, right? So it, are those, can the number eventually be possibly adjusted based on the lack of the opportunity to use areas of redevelopment as they were originally included in our plan? Because you don't know everything when you put them in there.
Yeah, your obligation will not be adjusted. You can, I mean, with a vacant land adjustment, third round, likely to do in the fourth round. It's a different mechanism for addressing your obligation.
But if you find that a major area for redevelopment has to be taken off the table, and we've run out of those space for whatever reason, for environmental reasons or steep slope or whatever. What do you do? You've run out of space, basically,
Are you talking about the third round or the fourth?
the fourth round.
So the
Well,
fourth,
any rounds, I mean, any rounds.
the obligation is the obligation.
Um,
It is what it is. I mean, the obligation for the third round was stipulated to and it was adjudicated. And it's settled.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that with additional information that you get when you're doing all the research that we do with these areas of redevelopment, as you get into the development, you can find barriers to being able to develop that. You can find additional barriers to being able to construct on those lands. So the number might not be adjusted, but you may not be able to reach it because you run out of land, or you just have to go up.
Yes,
Did,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying?
ultimately, you will be looking at mechanisms, whether they're overlay districts or they're redevelopment plans or whatever. And you are gonna be finding a way to accommodate whatever units you know around, right? The obligation doesn't go away. If a site becomes less viable for whatever reason, you
Yeah.
have to replace that site. You have to find a way to replace it.
That's interesting. Okay, okay.
But, and so with, with everybody on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, that's the
Yeah.
title,
Right, Michelle's on it.
yeah. And that's why this is a good conversation, because that's one of your principal roles on the committee is gonna be looking at those opportunities and trying to make sure that there's due diligence up front before you put something in plan that says that it's gonna.
Right, the number at the end of your math equation is not changing. You're gonna have to change the internal variables to make it.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, so in the round three, there were units, but there were all these credits and multiplication, not all units or what I would think of as unit counted the same. Is that stuff still go on in round four, or is it just, or what is a unit in 39?
Yeah, so there are bonuses, right? So there's lots of mechanisms and one.
But is it, would that bonus count against 39 or? I mean, is that, are there? Do you really have to come up with 39 individual
No.
livable things?
Front doors, they can't
Yeah,
walk.
thank you.
Can you flip to the next slide, please? So, it's funny you asked, we into this, right? So, we do this initially because this is built to show. Present need, here's a structure, here's a frame, but this doesn't tell you the individual number. What it says is that out of 39 units, you are allowed up to 9 bonus credits, okay? So when you say, okay, so new units required, well, a new unit could be an existing unit that then has a new 30-year or 40-year deed restriction, right? So it's not, we're thinking about it in terms of units, or credits, we're not thinking about it in terms of everything must be built.
No, I understand that. I understand that.
I think what he was saying is if we took a credit in the third round, could we then take that same credit in the third round? I don't think you can because the deed restriction, for example, it's the 30 years. But there might be something like South Hunterton Apartments, which 50 years ago they got a credit. You may be able to look at that and, maybe fix it up, work with them, and possibly get new credits in the fourth round. Right?
No,
That's
That's exactly right. So we can't get a 2 for out credit, right, into your rounds. But sometimes, depending on how the programs work, we could, for instance, if we work with let's say we had a 20-unit building and we wanted to extend those controls into but we couldn't take all those credits, we would actually save those credits for the next one, right? So we can do that. But there's the bonus structure is a little different in the fourth round. It used to be that you got bonuses just for family rentals and rentals, no more. The rentals you get no bonuses for, but you do get bonuses for special needs units. You get bonuses, I feel it's a half credit if you're in a redevelopment area. You get minimal bonuses for age restricted, so it's not.
So these are all bonuses for like the third round then, what I just heard you say, maybe?
No, this is a fourth
And
round.
those are fourth round,
Sure.
I thought you said something about rental units can get bonuses, I see.
I don't want to confuse you, right? I threw this up here. What this is showing is that there's minimum requirements below the new units required. So you have a minimum number of family units. So half of your units must be family units. You must have 8 rental units, right? These are minimums. Minimum family rental units, 4. Very low income. These are smaller requirements. These are sub requirements that you must meet.
But those are at more than 39.
You can only get 9.
These are of the third. These are of the third.
those
Out of the
They add up more
You
than
can add them
3.
up to,
No, no,
because.
Oh,
you only get
some are
bonuses for 9.
and some of them overlap. Right, so the minimum rental units overlaps with minimum family rentals.
So do you think round 3 or round 4 is more of a challenge for us?
Well, round 3 was figured out.
Round 4 is a challenge.
I think that, we've already started looking into like the available units that might be able to withstand controls, where we might be able to create units, or get credits for units that already exist. These are really financial equations because what you're doing is when you're extending control or deed restriction for affordable or creating a new one for a unit that wasn't already deed restricted, but it exists, it's a financial question. It's really about funding. That's what the issue.
Mayor, I have a question online.
Oh, okay, go ahead, please. Thank you, Cindy.
Lauren, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
No, I unraised my hand a little bit ago, so I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're already starting to conceive of this, and as the committee works on this, the more ideas we'll have for how to address this, but I'm not scared of the force from this tool.
Keep going.
Okay.
Is there,
So speaking to the committee here, you know, the things that we're gonna be looking at, or we're gonna be encouraging you to look at is how do we extend controls? You know, we've got accessory apartments that exist, and we've got some special needs units that could be rehabbed, and maybe that works. We're looking at non-residential properties that might be converted to residential, if those exist. Transitional housing, and if there's opportunities for new development, we should look at those too. Accessory dwelling units, that's another mechanism. I had a call from a person today, they're working on an accessory unit in a garage, and it's, you know, accessory dwelling units in a place like Lambertville can work very well because there's an existing framework or a context where you have these little outbuildings and alley access and things like that, and they could be very seamless in a city like, so those are things. And then maximizing the bonuses. We come at this, we're trying to maximize.
So Michael, with the Affordable Trust Fund, that we have, can we use some of those funds to work on that list that you just have up here?
Absolutely, yes. And so in the fourth round. Oh wait, I think you have fewer slides than I.
you have yours? Okay.
Yeah, next one. So the immediate steps, what I wanted to get to was, and I said this in the front, I said in the middle, I'm saying it. The January 31st deadline is immovable. And if you want to maintain immunity, you're gonna have to hit all of these deadlines, right? The last thing you want is for a gap in the immunity, because that gives an opportunity for someone to come in and say, I can solve all your problems, judge, here I am, and you're gonna lose control, essentially lose control of yourself. So, that is, the immediate step. Kelly and I are gonna be working on the resolution and the DJ action, and to get the city prepared to, stipulate, pass a resolution stipulating to the New Jersey DCA obligations, to move forward on that. And then it's gonna be a lot of creative work after that, so.
Thanks, Michael.
Here we go.
I think that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I will, take a moment just to open this up officially to public participation. So, if there are people who wish to ask another question or make a statement, this is the time to do it. Anybody, here have a further question? Yes, you,
I
sir.
would just say, you know, when we're talking about this resolution, you know, obviously there can be changed circumstances down the road. And so Kelly and Michael, we were talking about how we can fit that into our resolution when we approve this, that if, you know, these other cities, if they do win the lawsuit and the law changes, that we're gonna have some language built into this that would benefit from that as well. So it's not like we're just agreeing and, you know, if there's changed circumstances, we're stuck with this number. You know, we're gonna build language in there to give us more opportunities if that stuff does happen down the road.
Paul.
Well, are you also considering language that would help us go back and look at our obligation under round 3? Because as was pointed out, we've learned a lot about what land that we thought was developable, yeah, whatever. And that got included in our, what do they call it, respect. Somehow there was a survey done and it was decided based on our land, we have so much developable land.
Realistic development potential.
Thank you. Yeah, and that number, that might not be really right anymore based on what we've learned.
Okay.
That's a separate matter, though.
Yeah, but we're stipulating the
But this is
present
the
and perspective of.
the law only requires us to do for the fourth round. So
Oh, I read that in, but
Yeah.
it said present,
Yeah.
because it says stipulated in present. And our present ones are still round 3 too.
No, present, when we talk about present need, we're talking about the fourth round,
Okay.
present and perspective.
Oh, okay, fine.
Mayor, I have another person online.
Okay, go ahead.
Alicia, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, thank you. I actually have 2 questions. The first one is with reference to, I think I heard you say that we had a plan for the 28 units in round 3, if you could summarize what that is. And the second question I have is with respect to whether the city's gone after or looked at the neighborhood revitalization tax credit as an opportunity for help with any of this development.
Right. Feel this,
What was the question about the 20?
I don't know.
I think
Some of
Alicia,
some of the,
I think you may have misheard that.
round three,
Yeah.
the tax credit.
Yeah, the neighborhood revitalization tax credits or something, that would be great for rehabilitation and trying to extend, you know, where you have units that need revitalization and you can get deed restrictions for that, that's a great option. The CB,
CBDG.
yeah,
We have the
It's
small
separate.
communities,
small
but,
communities,
but they're not grants, they're loans.
yeah.
Those tax credits are not loans. They don't operate like tax credits. They operate like grants, but I'm not sure Limberville's eligible.
Anyone else online or in the room?
I don't see any.
Jeff?
Yeah, so we're kind of caught, see, I think we're caught right now between the river and the mountains, same thing with flooding. Because we still have to get round three done and, you know, there's property that has become fairly, you know, unavailable in a way because of contamination and everything else. So we still got to get round three done and then segue quickly into round four, because when we look at it, you know, 67 units combined between the two, and, you know, there may be wiggle room with credits here and there and, you know, whatever, but that's 337 units. That's, you know, that's a major impact to this community, and the only way you're gonna do that is to go high, or my biggest concern will be if we don't come up with that plan, some developers start buying one-family houses and knocking them down and trying to build five-story buildings, which is happening in other towns. In some places, there are cities that are actually doing that, which was a big problem, places like Long Branch and that. But I think we really got to get round three done, and we've got to then figure out how we can try to get to this number in round four. And then the other piece to that is the 67 that I saw in the sector regional share, no, the wealth number.
0.67.
So that's just based purely on income, not based on any factor. So what confuses me in this whole round four, nothing is based on growth. Like the concept of Mount Laurel, one, that growth is occurring, jobs are happening in suburbs and areas and no housing form. So that number is based on a factor of wealth, but not a factor of growth.
Well, that's not exactly right. So I do have the numbers, so it is based on growth. So what the first factor, one, the equalized non-residential valuation is based on the non-residential growth value between 1999 and 2023. They didn't go back to 2010. It went back all the way to 1999. So that growth is where it will get you to the 0.37%. And that's a proxy for job growth.
Is that for growth just in Lambert, or is that the regional growth?
Well, it's Lambertville's share of the region's growth.
Right, so it doesn't mean there's actually growth in Lambertville. No, I mean, I was.
The numbers
involved-
say that there was.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was involved in Countryside versus Ringwood 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Exempted environmental severity.
Right, so factor one is a proxy for jobs. And employment growth, and it's based on non-residential increase in value from 1999 to 2023. And then the income factor is based on, it's a tough thing to say. I tried to articulate the best I could, but it's Lambert.
I tried reading it, so I couldn't understand.
Yeah, I reworded it because I think,
No, man,
but to make it sound like a human said it.
Right.
So, Lambertville's share of the sum of the differences, you take every municipality in the region. And you look at their median household income. And the difference between their median household income and the lowest median household income in the region, minus $100. And you add it all together, and that's the sum, and then you take Lambertville's share of that. Then you do the same thing, but you weight it for the number of households. And that's how they get the income capacity back. And it measures relative income.
Anyone else? Anyone else online?
Yeah.
We have a motion to close the public participation period.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
I don't think we should.
Okay, make motion.
Let's, vote on closing the public the public participation period. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. We will post this on the city website and we will post the slides in, all of them, on the city website as well. And, those of you on the committee, thanks for being here. Thanks for serving. I'll be following up, as I said, in the next couple of days with, core particulars about the meeting times. It's good. Anything else, numbers? We're adjourned. Oh, wait, Phil, and motion to adjourn. Like, we're adjourned, please say aye. Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.
I didn't want to yell it out. No, but. Paradise is cute. Thanks. Gotta cut again? It needs a trim.
That's
Grown out. I was waiting for the Janet Three's Company look. Oh, that's really cute and that suits you. It does. Nice, nice, nice.
But, yeah.
We are all having